إن الحمد لله وحده الصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وبعد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and His choicest blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Seclusion or solitude. What is the basic concept of solitude and seclusion in Islam? We have discussed this in one of our previous sessions. Today we are going to discuss about virtues of seclusion. Seclusion comprises various virtues. Before we just deliberate on this, Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah has brought forth both aspects, merits and demerits of seclusion, advantages and disadvantages of the seclusion. However, as I said before, that there is no any flat ruling that whether it is outrightly good for a person or it is outrightly bad for a person, depending upon the condition, situation, and the tastes of a person. So now we go through first of all we go through the virtues of seclusion. Then we will also see the disadvantages of the seclusion. Then a person will just determine of his own what befits to him or what suits to that particular taste. So virtues of seclusion. Seclusion comprises various virtues, namely, first one, dedication to worship. Being in solitude, man enjoys ample time to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A wise man was once asked, "Where has seclusion led you?" He replied, "To the Almighty." In that way, if solitude renders man fully observant of Almighty, he should dedicate himself thereto. Second, getting away from sins. Solitude wards man against various sins that is committed when accompanying people. And there are many types of such sins, like backbiting, listening to people's unkind remarks about anyone's honor, and so on and so forth, while tacitly approving their whims. You should share Allah's wrath upon them. If you keep silent, your share may increase their malice. If you reform them, they dislike you and nurture their offense. Second, or the B part, commanding the good and forbidding the evil. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar. Dealing with people, you may encounter sins. If you keep silent, you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Forbidding them to so, you may be harmed. Thus, solitude spares you all these troubles. C. Hypocrisy. This is the most implicable malady. Dealing with people starts with longing for them. This strongly involves lying. Once an early Muslim was asked, "How are you today?" He replied, "I am weak and sinful, receiving my subsistence and waiting for my turn." Thus, if your inquiry after your brother is not motivated by intimacy and affection, it is dissemblance and hypocrisy. And inquiry may also hide malice and rancor. In that way, solitude frees you from all these anxieties. D. Being inadvertently imbued by their bad manners. This illness is so insidious that it is not easily detectable. An obscene person is scarcely accompanied for a long time. Comparing yourself before sitting with an obscene person and after, you will sense the difference in condemning his wiles. Habituation leads to indifference. In that way, seeing others committing grave sins heedlessly, minor sins unfortunately become insignificant. Likewise, considering early Muslims' worship and renunciation of worldly pleasure, one feels his inferiority. Hence, we sound the real meaning of the dictum saying, "Remembrance of righteous persons showers us with mercy." The above-mentioned fact can virtually be supported by giving this example. That is, seeing someone eating during the day in Ramadan. Muslims become strongly irritated and annoyed so much that they may think of his being an unbeliever. However, they do not do the same as the man who postpones performing salah, although neglecting even one time of prayer may turn him an unbeliever. The sole reason behind this attitude is the fact prayers are performed 5 times a day. The same applies to a jurist wearing silk or gold and seeing him backbiting others, which is graver than putting on silk clothes and wearing gold rings. Accordingly, you should beware these subtleties. Beware of keeping company with people, since they may enhance your desire for worldly pleasures and negligence of the hereafter. They may also undermine your inclination towards obedience, thus rendering disobedience more acceptable. In that way, finding a group remembering Allah, stick to them. Third virtue of solitude is freeing oneself from temptation and dissension. It also protects man's religion. Describing temptations, Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, seeing that people's promises become confused and their trust diminished, being like this, then he interlocked his fingers. Whereupon a man asked, "What should I do?" The Prophet ﷺ replied, "Stay at your home. Have control over your tongue. Do the good and give up the evil. Stick to the knowledgeable and shun the common people." Reported by Abu Dawood. Fourth virtue of solitude is saving oneself from the evils of humans. People may harm you through backbiting, distrust, and suspicion. Dealing with people, you meet envy, enmity, and so on and so forth. Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, remarked, "Solitude frees you from evil friends." Ibrahim ibn Adham, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, "Never approach whatever you do not know." A man asked his friend to accompany him in Hajj. He replied, "Let us rather enjoy Allah's shield, lest we may find in one another what sows hatred amongst us." Fifth, to avoid people's greed as well as yours. As for the former, satisfying all humans is untenable. It is said, "Satisfying none, you please." As for yours, mediating over worldly gaieties enhances your longing therefore, thus moving your greed. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Look at those who stand at lower level than you, but don't look at those who stand at a higher level than you, for this would make the favors conferred upon you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala insignificant in your eyes." Reported by Imam Muslim. The same meaning is highlighted by the verse of the Quran, "No strain your eyes in longing for the things we have given for enjoyment to parties of them, the splendor of the life of this world." Surah Al-Taha, verse number 131. And sixth and the last one, getting rid of unpleasant and foolish persons. You are not also troubled by a person of bad manners. If harmed by such person, one becomes ready to backbite them, thus undermining one's religion. So these are some of the important, or we can say the 6 virtues Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah talks about the solitude or the seclusion. As far as the first one is concerned, that is al-faragh lil-ibadah, dedication to worship. And there is no two opinion about it. When a person observes most of his time in solitude, after rendering his duties, after discharging his obligations and duties towards his family and other social responsibilities, then whatever time a person finds with himself, and he dedicates this time to solitude. And a person can get the ample time now to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once a pious person was asked about إِلَى أَيِّ شَيْءٍ أَفْضَى بِهِمُ الزُّهْدُ وَالْخَلْوَةِ. This zuhd, this asceticism and this solitude and seclusion, what it led them to. And they said, Al-unsu ila al-uns billahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. It led us to more cognizance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, more closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Uwais al-Qarni rahimahullah ta'ala, as we know, Uwais al-Qarni, he was one of the tabi'een. He did not find the opportunity to see and visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he was serving his old mother. He said, "Ma kunta ara an ahadan ya'rifu rabbahu fayanasu bighayrihi." I don't know a person who is cognizant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he finds peace with the people. He finds a tranquility with the people. If anyone is having the cognizance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he will try to have this communion all the time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever he finds a time of seclusion or solitude, he won't prefer it to stay with the people. Rather, he prefers to stay with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed with the perpetual remembrance. Because solitude, it also helps a person to make a lot of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Though it is not necessary for the dhikr to be in seclusion, rather a person can be in a session and he can also be doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But still, the impact of the gathering, the impact of the people around, it has its efficacy. It influences the heart of a person. There is no doubt about it. Human heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this amazing thing on the surface of the planet, the human heart. And it is heart influences the heart. Now we need to see that what are the hearts surrounding my heart. If it is surrounded by the hearts full of love of dunya, full of love of gaieties and vanities of this dunya, then definitely our heart will also develop the same feelings. On the other hand, if the heart is surrounded by such hearts which are qulub salima, the sound hearts, which remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which know the essence of this dunya, and they place this dunya in its appropriate position, then they won't find peace to stay with the people. Rather, after discharging their obligations, after fulfilling their social obligations or religious obligations, they will stay with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And dawamul fikr, one is dawamul dhikr and dawamul fikr. Dhikru fikr. There's a beautiful Persian couplet. Juzba Qur'an zayqa mirubahi ast. Faqri Qur'an asl shahnshahi ast. Faqri Qur'an ikhtilati dhikru fikr. Fikri ra kamil nadidam juzba dhikr. It's a beautiful couplet which describes the concept of dhikr and fikr. Where can we derive it from? What is the source of our dhikr? What is the source of our fikr? Dhikr means remembrance. Fikr means thought. So, remembrance and thought. Since one of the characteristic of the mind is that it keep on thinking. It never takes any rest like the heart. At heart keeps on beating, the mind keeps on thinking, whether we are awake or we are asleep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the mind and the heart in such a way that they never stop working. They keep on working. They are always in function. So dhikri ra kamil juzba Quran dhaiqa mirubahi ast. The source of our dhikr or fikr, it is the Quran. Without the Quran, we cannot get the proper dhikr, what we are supposed to remember. We have to give preference in remembrance. Fikr, the source of our thought, the source of our perceptions, our perspectives, our ideas. Juzba Quran dhaiqa mirubahi ast. Faqri Quran asl shahnshahi ast. If we understand the essence of the Quran, that's the true kingdom a person has got with him. A person has got the dominion, he has got the kingdom with him, if he could derive the source of the dhikr and fikr. Juzba Quran zayqa mirubahi ast. Faqri Quran asl shahnshahi ast. Faqri Quran. What is this essence of Quran? Ikhtilati dhikru fikr. You merge the dhikr with the fikr. A good portion of time must be spent in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then also a good portion of time giving a thought to it, reflecting upon our own actions, reflecting upon the dunya, the different phenomena that take place, the world around us, thinking on it, contemplating on it. And contemplation for a while, one of the hadith says, is better than the 60 years of worship. The contemplation that leads a person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, dawamul dhikr, perpetual dhikr, or dawamul fikr, perpetual contemplation, regular fikr and dhikr, it leads to the ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this can be achieved when a person is in solitude, whether performing the dhikr or practicing the fikr. Both the things which are immensely important for the advancement, the progress of the ruh, of our soul, of our true personality development, then seclusion is immensely important. Seclusion is, we can say, it is the bread and butter of the spiritual life. Is a food to the spiritual life, that is perpetual dhikr and perpetual fikr. Dawamul dhikr wa dawamul fikr. And both can be achieved when a person stays in seclusion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person resorts to solitude, then he can harness the benefit of dawamul dhikr and dawamul fikr. Dhikr has its own benefits. Fikr has its own benefits. And all the benefits can be achieved. The benefits can be harvested when a person seeks solitude, when a person stays, and when a person resorts to seclusion. And second advantage of uzla, or second virtue of seclusion is that a person abstains himself from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which usually when a person interacts with the people, then he offers himself to many sorts of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which a person can save himself from if he resorts to seclusion. When we interact with the people, there are four possibilities that a person may get involved in. The first possibility is to get involved in backbiting, because it is usual, people are now habitual about it. This is one of the tasteless sin. Ghiba is a tasteless sin. When people usually engage in backbiting, and this, as it is one of the major sin in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly mentions in the Quran, أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. That is there any one of you who wishes to eat the flesh of his dead brother? Surely every one of you, each one of you, dislike it. But this major sin, this disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is quite prevalent among the people. And now when people are backbiting someone, they commit this backbiting about someone. Now there are two approaches of ours. Either we have to agree with them or we have to disagree with them. If we agree with them, then we also commit this disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we disagree with them, and when we agree with them, so we earn the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We invite for us the trouble and anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we disagree with them, we say to them, you must stop backbiting, you should not commit the backbiting, it is haram, it's one of the major sin. Definitely, now this also depends upon the nature of the members of the session. If they are pious people, then inshallah, hopefully, they will seek the admonition out of it and they'll stop committing the backbiting. But usually, most of the people, they don't have to do anything with the taqwa and all these things. Yes, we don't say that people are not having taqwa, but usually they are accustomed to it to such a level, to such an extent that they don't feel that they are doing something wrong. Then they try to justify their backbiting. Wallahi, I can say at his face, there is no harm in it. This is what I'm explaining, what is there. That is the ghiba. If it is not there, then that is buhtan. So Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that while interacting with the people, a person may get involved. There are four possibilities definitely. And second thing is, if al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar, commanding the good and forbidding the evil. If a person interacts with the people, definitely we come across with many of the evil, many of the munkar. Munkar is anything which is prohibited by the Sharia. Munkar is anything which is disliked by Allah and His Messenger sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Then there are levels of munkarat. It may be haram, it may be makruh, it may be mushtabih, that is doubtful. There can be levels of it. But munkarat will be there. And if a person now resorts to silence, if a person doesn't say anything to a person, فَإِن سَكَتَ عَصَى اللَّهِ, if he lapses into silence, he is disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِن أَنْكَرَ تَعَرَّضَ لِأَنْوَاءِ مِنَ الضَّرَرِ, if a person starts forbidding the wrong, as far as commanding the good is concerned, it is comparatively, it is easier than forbidding the wrong. Say for example, we say to a person, let's we perform 5 times salah. And here you cannot find a resistance. People won't, you won't face the anger of the people if you command the good. We should always tell a lie. We should always speak truth. We should not tell a lie. So these things. But if a person is consuming the liquor and you say it is haram, don't do this. Here you will face the resistance. So, al-amr bil ma'ruf, commanding the good, is somehow easier job than forbidding the wrong or forbidding the evil. And if a person stays in solitude, then he will not face such situations which may bring disaster to him as far as the worldly issues are concerned. No doubt, if a person practices al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar and he faces the resistance, he faces the opposition on the part of the people, then it elevates his levels. There is no doubt about it. But actually here Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah wants us to just realize the virtues of solitude, virtues of the uzla. And the third possibility, if a person interacts with the people, that is, he may commit riya, the show off. And that's one of the deadly disease. And it is very difficult for a person to stay away from committing the riya. Fudayl ibn Iyaz rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that almost all action starts with the riya. Then it becomes a habit. Then it is transformed into ibadah. Then comes ikhlas. Not necessarily that when we start any good deed that we may have the ikhlas at the first instance. But it's not also necessary that we commit the riya. We practice this show off at any cost. Not necessarily. There are other people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect from practicing this riya. But what I'm saying is the common experience. Usually when people start performing good deeds, it starts with the riya. And the first thing, when we meet with the people, so a person wants to expose his good deeds to other person. And many a times, a person may also, he is required to tell a lie so that his position is consolidated. And even our aslaf, our pious predecessors, they would try to just avoid if anybody asked them about the amal. They were so much conscious about it that whatever they do, whatever they perform, it must be only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they did not expose their deeds to others. If anybody would ask them, كيف أصبحت? How did you make your morning? أو وكيف أمسيت? How did you make your evening? Some of them is reported to have answered, كيف أصبحت? How did I do my morning? I did my morning that I am a weakest of all slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mudnibeen, I am the sinful servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nakulu arzakana, Allah bless us with the provision, with the rizki, we eat it. Wanantadhiru ajalana, and we wait for our death. He would divert it, he would not give the explanation, oh, I performed this, I did this, I performed this good deed. So he would just divert this. Then he would focus upon which would also motivate the other person to perform the good deeds. That was their their approach to protect their good deeds. Performing good deed is immensely and tremendously important, because that is second of the 4 basic elements of salvation. If you are supposed to get the salvation in the light of the Surah Al-Asr, there are 4 elements, there are 4 things which we need to achieve. Wal-Asr innal insana lafi khusr, and we should always remember Surah Al-Asr. One of the narration also says that whenever Sahaba and our pious predecessors, our Aslaf, they would depart, at the time of their departure, they would remind each other, Wal-Asr innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala is reported to have said that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have revealed only this surah or this chapter of the Quran, lakafat, it would suffice everything. Actually, it was on the base of his geniusness, on the base of his brilliance, he said this. But for the people like me, we could not understand what he said, because just one small chapter, how could it comprise the whole teachings of Islam? But it's only the scholarship of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala that he could see everything in this small chapter. Wal Asr, the timeline. We are blessed with the time. And this timeline, it started the moment we came to this world. And now it will end up at our death. Innal insana lafi khusr. All mankind is in loss. All mankind, from different continents, from different parts of the world, belong to different ethnicities, having different countenances and complexions, speaking hundreds and thousands of languages. This all is irrelevant in the light of Surah Al-Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. All mankind is in loss. Illa alladhina amanu. The first element of salvation, the first requirement for salvation is Iman. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. So amal, it is second of the 4th basic requirements for salvation. Without the good amal, a person should not think of, if a person thinks about salvation without good amal, he is living in a fool's paradise. It's a wishful thinking, we call. Yes, we must have strong hope with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it is a wishful thinking that without practicing the good deeds, a person thinks of salvation. The student does not prepare for the exam. Now he thinks, now he will see a dream, and in the dream he will be shown all the 5 questions or 6 questions, and he will prepare them only. The life won't goes like it. So our Aslaf, they protected their amal. So the commission of actions, commission of deeds is immensely important. But more important is to protect them. Firstly, Shaitan wants us not to perform the good deeds. By hook or crook, when we perform it, then his main objective is to spoil this. And his biggest ever tool, strongest ever, which is having the irresistible efficacy, that is Riya, that is show off. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all our amal, all our deeds from Riya, from show off. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with the Iman, that whenever we perform any deed, however great or however small it appears to be, we do it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the assaults of Shaitan, because he can see us, we cannot see him. And we protect all our good deeds.